Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, give us a call or a text on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, Katie Wilson wants more housing, but her Tree People supporters are really not liking that idea. Before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
2 more children are dead because of Democrats' policies here in Washington. There's no way to sugarcoat this. There's no way to spin this. There is a direct line from their bad, woke, terrible policies to 2 dead children. In addition to that, this is also because of the complete incompetence of the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, which was already facing a ton of backlash for the amount of alleged fraud, overpayments, mismanagement of finances. What is it going to take for there to be an investigation? How many dead children do you need? A Seattle mother who was previously supervised by the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families, is now been charged with manslaughter after her 11-month-old son died of a fentanyl overdose. Is anybody surprised? Anybody surprised? How many times have we had cases like this because of the Keeping Families Together Act? First, let's get into the details of the case. According to King County Superior Court charging documents, 33-year-old Safara Ratoya Red is accused of exposing her infant son to a deadly environment despite repeated warnings from child welfare workers about fentanyl use around children. So, wait a second. You're telling me that DCYF visited the home, saw the fentanyl, cautioned her about the fentanyl, and couldn't get the child out of there? What was tying their hands? The Keeping Families Together Act. Quote, the defendant had access to services and yet still placed such a vulnerable victim in a dangerous position where they were able to obtain deadly narcotics. Okay, can we take the, courtroom legal mumbo jumbo nonsense out of this? The child didn't obtain deadly narcotics. They ingested them. They ate them. They swallowed them because it looked like candy, or they just touched it in some cases. Senior Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Logan Bryant wrote in a March 12th bail request, records reveal the defendant tested positive for fentanyl at least 4 times and would continue to deny such use to their DCYF social worker. The defendant was told about the dangers of fentanyl around children and yet disregarded that information. The child died on October 26, 2024. An autopsy determined the cause of death was acute fentanyl intoxication. Investigators say Red initially claimed a man forced a white substance that tastes like fentanyl into her mouth at the Othello light rail station, and that her baby may have been exposed there as well, but police later said surveillance footage did not back up her account at all. In fact, surveillance footage showed her traveling through South Seattle with the baby, including at Rainier Beach and on a bus, and showed no sign of any assault whatsoever. Apartment surveillance allegedly showed Red singing and dancing while pushing the child in the stroller shortly before the 911 call. Investigators also say cameras captured her throwing 2 bags down a trash chute while she was on the phone with dispatchers as her baby lay unresponsive inside her apartment. Clearly can't make good judgment decisions. You're taking out the garbage while you're on the phone with 911 while your child is dying. You're not frantically doing CPR. When officers forced their way into the unit, they found the baby dead and cold to the touch, which means it took a while for her to call. Took a while. Police said boxes of used Narcan cartridges were near the child's body, which means she tried to resuscitate it. Can't do it. Might as well take out the garbage. The medical examiner later not only found fentanyl, but norfentanyl in the baby's system, evidence that the child had metabolized some of the drug with the report stating the most likely reason was chronic exposure. DCYF had prior contact with Red dating back to the child's birth in November. According to a 2025 DCYF child fatality review obtained by Como News, hospital staff reported Red tested positive for methadone and fentanyl and had regularly used fentanyl during pregnancy. I remember that when the news was covering the Keeping Families Together Act, I think it was actually the Seattle Times at the time, what they were highlighting was the fact that children couldn't be taken away from drug-addicted parents even if the mother was found to have been doing drugs while pregnant with the child. And I remember reading the article at the time, and I remember that it was a Friday, and I said, why would you bury something like this on a Friday? This is a huge scandal. This is something that should not be passed at all. How could Republicans and Democrats pass this in a bipartisan fashion? Do you guys not realize what this thing does, the Keeping Families Together Act? Everybody was so concerned about the government seizing children that they didn't think through the ramifications of this. And I said, an infant is going to die. A child is going to be born into a house of drug addicts and die, either because of the exposure they got in utero or because that toddler eventually grabs something, or who knows what happens. CPS workers later discussed fentanyl safety with her, including the drug's lethality and the need to wash hands and change clothes after use. Oh, that's it. We have a highly lethal drug, which is deadly to the touch in some cases, but just wash your hands. It's like COVID. Just wash your hands. You'll be perfectly fine. No problem. We're good to go. No problem. Red reportedly showed workers a lockbox and said she had Narcan supplied by the hospital. This is literally everything the Democrats say they're going to do to fix this being proven not to work. You think the drug addict who's doped out on fentanyl is bent over in the Fetty fold is going to remember to put the drugs in the lockbox? Oh, she's got Narcan. We'll just hit the kid with a couple doses of Narcan. It'll stop the overdose, right? Well, she did that. That didn't work. The review states Red repeatedly tested positive for fentanyl over the following months while denying she was using. Family members also warned CPS that she was not complying with the agency's safety plan. DCYF closed the case in June of 2024, 4 months before the baby died. Representative Travis Couture is going to be joining us at 4:30 today to discuss this. Has spent years trying to repeal or rewrite Washington's Keeping Families Together Act, which allows children to remain with drug-addicted parents. Passed in 2021 as House Bill 1227, the law raised the legal bar for removing children from their homes, requiring the state to show imminent physical harm before acting. Couture and other critics have argued that the standard effectively handcuffs CPS, social workers, judges, and police in cases involving active fentanyl use, forcing the state to wait until a child is on the verge of death or already dead. That's exactly what happened in this case. He has repeatedly introduced legislation to undo or narrow the act, arguing that it leaves children trapped in homes where hard drugs are present, like in this case here. His latest bill, House Bill 1092, sought to clarify that active use of hard drugs like fentanyl in a home with children can meet the threshold for removal when it creates serious danger. It also included a reunification path through treatment and documented sobriety. He previously told us on the show that just in the first 6 months of 2025, they had almost 100 critical incidents. We don't know the numbers for the second half yet. The figure tracks with data from the Office of the Family and Children's Ombuds, which tracks this kind of stuff, reported 92 child deaths or near deaths tied to the child welfare system in the first 6 months of 2025 alone, putting last year on pace to become the deadliest on record. How many other cases do we need? In Everett, 3 babies overdosed in 1 day. 1 died. 2 were sent back to the homes with the fentanyl abusing parents. after being revived. This session, after his bill and related proposals stalled in the legislature because Democrats didn't want to do anything about this, he attempted to pull 3 welfare bills, 2 Republican, 1 Democrat, out of committee. And after that effort failed, he wrote on X, "Bad news, I've exhausted every possible option this session to save innocent children who are dying at alarming rates in our child welfare system." He said, "I was allowed 9 non-consecutive minutes to plead for these babies' lives. Unfortunately, these attempts failed on party line votes, with all Republicans voting yes and all Democrats voting no." And I remember that we interviewed Travis Couture at the beginning of this session, and he was so optimistic that the Democrats were finally going to vote for this, but no, in a party line vote, they rejected it again. The blood is on their hands. Look, you want to say you're trying to keep kids from being wards of the state? I get it. But once you realize that kids are dying in record numbers because of drug-addicted parents, all you have to do is put a line in there that says, except for in the cases of drug addiction, blah, 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 you're done. You can keep the rest of it. Keep all of it. They won't even do that. The latest tragedy comes on the heels of DCYF that revealed major breakdowns in oversight, record-keeping, financial controls within the state's child care subsidy system. From 2021 through 2024, the Washington State Auditor's Office reported it was unable to fully audit the program because DCYF failed to maintain required provider-level data, making it impossible to trace payments to individual providers. As a result, more than $1.3 billion in spending was deemed unauditable due to missing documentation, highlighting systemic noncompliance with federal requirements. So to translate that for you, $1.3 billion is unauditable by the Washington State Auditor, who is definitely not a Republican, because DCYF doesn't have the records. Doesn't have it at all. Where's Tana Sen, the director of DCYF? She's on the back of a milk carton. You can't find her anywhere because her entire agency is surrounded by allegations of fraud and dead children. Nothing they do works out right. Nothing they do helps anybody. And she is MIA. Why won't Ferguson fire her? Why won't Ferguson do a big call to redo this law in the legislative session? Why won't Nick Brown investigate any of this? You know the answers. You know the answers. A 2025 audit identified $37 million in questionable payments tied to missing attendance records, overbilling, and a lack of proper identification. And now DCYF is trying to spin that, trying to spin it, saying, there's no fraud. There's no fraud. It's just overpayments. How do you know? You couldn't audit the last 5 years of data. 4 of those years was $1.3 billion worth of mismanaged funds. We don't even know what the last year was yet. We don't even have the records. After year 1, where you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, that should have been a red flag. But you guys didn't even look into it. You just let it go for the next year, and the next year, and the next year. And for all we know, last year and this year as well. In theory, we could be looking at $2.3 billion, $2.5 billion, $3 billion in one agency. The documented fraud that they have found in Minnesota is $9 billion. We're talking about potentially $2.5 billion or more in one agency, just in one. And these are the guys responsible for overseeing the daycares. These are the ones who are responsible for keeping children safe from drug-addicted parents, and they're not doing anything about it at all? This is shameful. There's literally blood dripping down the hands of Washington State Democrats because of this. Because this isn't the only case. This is going to sound almost identical. But these are 2 different cases, and we found out about both of them last night. A Longview, Washington mother is facing felony manslaughter charges after her 3-month-old son died with what investigators describe as an extraordinary amount of fentanyl in a system, about 20 times the level considered potentially lethal for an adult. According to the Daily News, Lashaya Shanmari Amy Avila, age 33, was arrested at her home, booked on suspicion of second-degree manslaughter on Monday. At her first court appearance on Tuesday, Cowlitz County Superior Court Judge Jill Carmy set bail at $150,000. The child died on December 23rd after police and medics were called to a home behind a Fred Meyer in Olympia Way for a report of a baby not breathing. First responders found the infant dead. According to the police report, the baby's skin was blue, his body was cold, and rigor mortis had already begun, which means mom was probably so drugged out she didn't wake up till long after the baby was dead. An autopsy later found the infant had fentanyl, methamphetamine in his system. Investigators said the fentanyl level was roughly 20 times, was considered potentially fatal for an adult. The child had also tested positive for both drugs at birth, but the forensic pathologist concluded the death was caused by a recent exposure, not residual exposure from birth, which means the kid tested positive for drugs, they didn't take the kid away from mom, and then mom overdosed her own kid. Police said a sergeant spotted drug paraphernalia in the room where Avila had been sleeping. Investigators collected the baby's bottle, formula, and 3 containers of powder found in the home. Testing showed the powder contained fentanyl and meth. Well done. Well done, DCYF. Avila told police she was addicted to fentanyl, suggested the baby may have been exposed through secondhand smoke or by contact after she used. She reportedly said she had used drugs about 24 hours before speaking with investigators and admitted she likely would have used again the day her son died if the accident, that's what she called it, had not happened. In her statement, she said she woke up around 5 a.m. to the baby crying, asked her 11-year-old child to make a bottle, changed the infant, then fed him while lying on her side. She said she fell asleep during the feeding, woke up again around 9:30 a.m. to a call from her partner, who is in prison, and then realized the baby was motionless. She told officers the infant had been in the crook of her right arm while she patted him with her left hand and held the bottle with her chin before falling asleep. My you-know-what. That wasn't falling asleep. That was overdosing. The Longview case comes as Washington lawmakers continue to talk about whether or not we should remove children from the home because of the Keeping Families Together Act. Every single Democrat voted against fixing this thing. Every single one. There is blood on their hands. There is blood on Tana Sen's hands. They are not dealing with this at all. It's one thing to say how ridiculous this fraud is, that people like Nick Shirley, Jonathan Cho, Cam Higbee, Kristen Magg, and yours truly have uncovered, and go, holy cow, they're buying Teslas. They're buying Cybertrucks with all that money. Look at the Quality Leering Center. Let's buy a sweatshirt from the Quality Leering Center. It's kind of funny. It makes for good headlines, but there's a lot of fraud going on. But now we're talking about life and death, and we have been talking about life and death for the last 3 years since this thing was realized to be a massive problem. Basically, as long as I've been on the air, we've been warning about this bill, talking about what a problem it is. And yet, Democrats refuse to deal with it. It's one thing to say fraud. Okay, you're defrauding the taxpayer. You're defrauding the government. That's not good. But here you literally have children dying because of this terrible, terrible legislation. And what's it for? So we can feel good about ourselves that we're keeping these families together? I've told this story before, but I had a friend who used to work for the department. She was in the legal division, the one that actually took the kids away. And she said that oftentimes when people got themselves clean and got out of jail and came back, they wouldn't even know her, wouldn't even recognize her. And she's the one who took their kids away because they were so drugged out at the time, they didn't even know what was happening. They didn't even know where she was. Somebody tried to take my kids away, that face would be burned into my memory for the rest of my life. And they didn't even recognize her. And she said she didn't even recognize them because they had gotten their lives together, looked clean, looked sober, looked like a normal human being when beforehand they looked like monsters. The state is enabling this problem. Republicans are trying to fix this problem. Democrats don't want to fix it because of some warped view of social justice. How many children need to die before they realize this is a problem? How many billions of dollars need to go unaccounted for before they'll look into an investigation, before they'll even consider an investigation? I will remind you, this is one agency, just one. And this is what we know about. How much more is out there in Washington? And how many victims are out there that we don't know about yet? And then ask yourself this question. Why are these stories, are you, the first time you're hearing them is on my show? Why are you not seeing them in the mainstream media? Why are you not seeing them reported? Why are you not seeing lawmakers, except for the Republicans like Travis Couture, talking about this all the time? This is an easy win for Democrats, but they won't do it because they're worried it angers their woke base. They're on the side of the drug addicts, not the kids who are being killed by their drug-addicted parents. You should be asking yourself why this isn't front-page news, why this isn't the top story on every single local media outlet. There's a reason we're doing it as the top story, because nobody else will. And that is absolutely shameful. How much more money needs to go missing? How many more children need to die before people realize this is a massive problem, before Democrats admit this is a huge problem? And speaking of people with huge problems on their hands, Katie Wilson wants to build more housing density, but her own radical base is now upset about it. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show. Katie Wilson has an idea which many of us have suggested before. Hers is a little bit more extreme. Hers is a little bit more radical. But she wants 3 words to be her housing plan: taller, denser, faster. However, there's one little problem. Who are you building the housing for? You have a 33% occupancy vacancy rate in downtown Seattle. I was in downtown today, wandering around in Pioneer Square. There is nobody there. Nobody. Now, I understand it's not the nightlife, but there is nobody. The only people I saw around were drug addicts. That's it. I had a meeting in the Smith Tower. You're going to get to hear an interview with our friend Jonathan Cho at 5:30 today. I went down to see the new location of the Discovery Institute, talked to Jonathan Cho about his arrest in Las Vegas and a few other things, but there is nobody there. But okay, let's say the city comes roaring back, not under her leadership, but somebody else. You're going to need more places for people to live. And if you have more supply, housing is cheaper. Cool. She says she wants to speed up the next phases of the city's comprehensive plan. According to Como News, some of the key parts of the plan include building more housing near transit options. I'm fine with that. And in around what the city calls growth centers. The mayor recently announced the push toward accelerating zoning changes. And here's where you lose me. Why? Look at Vancouver, British Columbia. I watched this happen in real time in the early 2000s. They said we need more density in Vancouver. So what they did was they said, okay, we're going to change the zoning on these single-family houses. And now it can become a duplex, 4 houses, 10 houses, an apartment building. So now your house is not being bid on just by me, if I want to buy it, if you live in Vancouver, in our 51st state up there in Canada. It's being bid on a developer who now says I could pay more because I can make the money back when I sell 4 units or 5 units or 6 units or 10 units. So let's just use round numbers here. So let's say the house cost $1 million. Well, now if the person says, hey, you know what, I can get 4 houses on there. I can get $5 million. I can get 5 houses on there. I can look how much money I can make. Now what's going to happen is now your house is worth $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million. So actually a lot of people left and said, take the money and run. Completely wiped out the Jewish community in Vancouver. It's almost non-existent now because a lot of people just said, screw it. Why am I staying here? I'll take my $7 million, $8 million, $9 million and get out of here for basic houses. These were not big houses. I stayed in a bunch of them. They don't exist anymore. They're now townhomes. I saw what became of a lot of these properties. And that's where you lose me. Now, for those of you who live in Seattle, if you think about where the light rail is right now, one of the things they said was, if you imagine Martin Luther King Way in South Seattle when you're coming off of I-5, if you look to the right and left of it, it's all these broken down auto body shops and truck yards, bus yards. And you know what? You need a place for that kind of stuff. But people thought, well, if we build housing along the transit line near the transit stations, that makes sense, and I got no problem with that. It's when you go into the single-family neighborhoods, then you price out the affordability because now you've made it attractive to developers. Something else happened. They said, we're going to do this along Rainier Avenue. Anybody here been along Rainier Avenue recently? Especially over where it hits I-5 and I-90, right over there on Rainier Avenue? Well, what happened was they built these big high-rises, which is great. But then the city said, we want them for affordable housing. So if you look at a lot of these high-rises, they have clinics in the retail areas, special clinics for our drug-addicted, taxpayer-funded homeless population. And the developer said, well, if the city is going to pay me 2 or 3 times the amount for this building, I might as well just turn it over to them. Have you seen the 7 line recently? Have you seen the bus stops along there? I'm going to drive home that way at some point today. And what I'm going to see is I'm going to see the cops at one stop. I'm going to see an ambulance at another stop. I'm going to see a fire truck at another stop. And I'm going to see people bent over in the Fetty Fold in another one. If you want more density, who is it for? Are we just warehousing drug addicts? Now, what I find funny about this is Katie Wilson's own radical base is not in favor of this, but not for the reasons I just mentioned. They're not in favor of this because it might get rid of the tree canopy and we're paving paradise to put up a parking lot. They're very mad that this may kill some trees. And any excuse I get to play this clip from a few years ago of the tree activists testifying in public comment at Seattle City Hall, I never pass it up.
Such a lack of life and sound. All that's left is bare, muddy ground. A magnificent tree was murdered. The mighty dollar cut it down. There's a hole in the sky where the tree once was. Somebody's making money. Stand up. There's a hole in the sky where the tree once was.
Somebody's making money. God, I love that clip.
Is that, okay, how long ago was that?
I don't know, like 7, 8 years ago, that thing?
Is that a song that's like a known song that she changed? Did she Weird Al Yankovic it?
No, the theater kids wrote it. You should
it's
see
an original.
They were dressed as trees, and they had come there with their little song to perform during public testimony.
Okay.
So Lady probably used to be the camp drama teacher, or maybe she always wanted to be the camp drama teacher and never got to be it, and they came and performed their little play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an original.
It's an okay. Because I can't figure out what the tune is to that song. It's so poorly crafted.
Yes. Yes, it is. I mean, give it a little zitz, a little zazz, a little.
If you want to do that sort of thing, by all means, go right ahead.
Sure, it makes great fodder for us.
Makes good audio for this radio show. But at least give me something of a tune or
something.
Take an existing song and change the lyrics.
Something. Give me something.
That is awful.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And don't forget they had their little keyboard, their little electric keyboard, and they all had their little tree costumes. Katie Wilson's own supporters. When the left eats itself, it's absolutely delicious for all of us. Meanwhile, the right isn't immune from fighting with itself. When we come back, Joe Kent now spreading Iranian propaganda on social media. Tell you what's up. Up next, you're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. All of the political pundits, social media has been all a Twitter about what Trump wrote last night, that he was going to destroy the civilization in Iran, bomb them back to the Stone Age, gave them a deadline of 8 o'clock tonight, East Coast time, which means 5 o'clock today. Well, now President Trump just posted this on social media. Got some breaking news for you right now.
Talk Radio 570 KVI. Breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
He just put this up on Truth Social based on conversations with Prime Minister of Pakistan, wherein they requested I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight to Iran and subject to the Islamic Republic of Iran, agreeing to the complete, immediate, and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. I agree to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran for a period of 2 weeks. This will be a double-sided ceasefire. The reason for doing so is that we have already met and exceeded all military objectives and are very far along with a definitive agreement concerning long-term peace with Iran and peace in the Middle East. We received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is workable based on which to negotiate. Almost all of the various points of past contention have been agreed to between the U.S. and Iran, but a 2-week period will allow the agreement to be finalized and consummated. On behalf of the United States of America as president and also representing the countries of the Middle East, it is an honor to have this long-term problem close to a resolution. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. So, first question I have for you is, do you think all the talking heads feel really stupid right now? All day long. Trump's going to get us. I heard 2 people in our newsroom talking about, this is so scary. We're on the brink of World War III. And I said, you guys don't understand Donald Trump at all. This whole fire and brimstone thing he does, he did this with North Korea before his meeting with Rocket Man in his first term. This is what he does. Iron fist, velvet glove. Which one do you want? And actually, I'll say all the pundits probably helped out, because when you have the U.S. media saying, he's a madman, we need to impeach him, we need to invoke the War Powers Act, he's a crazy person, probably made the Iranians think he was serious, that he was actually willing to do it, or they didn't question whether or not he was, because you got CNN out there going, he's going to blow up he's going to eradicate, genocide everybody. Now, the Iranians are notorious for being complete BS artists. The president said so himself. The president said yesterday they are very good at BSing. I can't say what he actually said on the radio. They're very good at it, and they have been for 47 years. Is this a stalling tactic? Well, first thing is, if Trump actually bombed Karg Island, they would have no money left. That would be it. That's where their oil production is done. That would be it. All those little islands around there, if we bombed them, that would be it. That would be the almost nuclear option. Right now, Trump is saying, if you want to rejoin the world, give up your nuclear ambitions, give up funding terrorism. It's that simple. It's that easy. And it's been that simple and that easy for the last 4+ decades. That's all they had to do this entire time. Now, the problem is that radical Islam plays the long game. And they think to themselves, we can wait out the orange man. We just want the bombing to stop now so we can rearm. Same thing Hamas did. Same thing Hezbollah does. So, do you think this is the right move for right now? You get the strait reopened. You don't bomb the crap out of Iran. Me personally, I don't see how you ever get what you want out of Iran, because they have lied so many times before. Until you have a new regime, until the people rise up against Iran, I don't think you get what you want. And I think by leaving the Strait of Hormuz in Iranian control, nothing changes. I think as long as you have these guys in power, nothing changes. And so many of you, anytime I ask this question, you say you're willing to do whatever it takes to make sure you get rid of this regime. So what do you guys think? You in agreement with President Trump's move here for a ceasefire, or you disagree with it? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from our friend Leonard from Shoreline. Leonard, what's going on?
Hey, On your last topic you talked about here in the last segment there regarding this welfare fraud that just happened. It just got 2 kids killed.
Yeah.
This is one reason why acting Attorney General Todd Blanche just came out with a new agency. It's called the Fraud Enforcement. It's called the National Fraud Enforcement Division, which will stop all of this.
Well, we hope it will, but we had hoped that Doge was going to do that. And we had hoped that these other fraud things were going to do it. And we had hoped that the Department of Education was going to go after, University of Washington and Western Washington University and the other places around here. And aside from sending them angry letters, I haven't seen a lot actually happen. It's hard for me to get excited about this whole new fraud thing when I haven't seen the results of what they said they were going to do originally. Leonard, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. The other Mike in Everett says over on the text line regarding the story about the dead kids dying because they are stuck at home with drug-addicted parents, one question I have about the whole Keeping Families Together Act mess, how come the caseworkers aren't protesting it and raising a stink about it? If I was a caseworker and a child that I was supervising died because of this whole mess, I would be up in arms about it. Mike, you are 100% correct. Where are the social workers? Where are the people who claim they are looking out for the children's best interest? Why aren't they saying anything? Are they afraid of losing their salaries? Or are they so woke they just believe, yeah, this is the best way to go, even though they're seeing this insanity with their own 2 eyes? Absolutely nuts. You know what else is nuts? Founder of a local naked bike ride, charged with child pornography. Who didn't see that one coming? Tell you all about it up next. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, we are giving away four tickets to the Washington State Spring Fair. Rides, animals, food, exhibits, motorsports, you name it. Plus, we're going to be out there, us here from KVI, are going to be out there for Military Appreciation Fridays this coming Friday and next Friday. That's right. You get to meet me and Kevin out there in the morning before we have to race back here for the show. Washington State Spring Fair in Puyallup, April 10th through 12th and April 17th through 19th. Now, if you want your chance to win these fantabulous prizes, head on over to kvi.com right now. It's going to ask you for a few little pieces of personal information. Fill it out, sign up, and you may be the lucky winner of 4 tickets to the Washington State Spring Fair. You guys are militant over here on the text line. 253, no Iran ceasefire deal. We need to ensure no nukes. They're about 2 weeks away from having them. They've done this before. Bait and switch. From John in Lakewood, okay with the Trump delay. One last chance for Arab involvement and a Persian deal. This one here from Gino. Ari, trust but verify. Darren, the Iranian regime needs to be knocked out of existence. Robin Lakewood says Trump already bombed the Cargill and military targets. Yes, but he didn't bomb the oil. So that was probably softening them up for what was coming their way. Yeah, that's what I think it is. I think a lot of people here said, hey, here's what we need to do. This is what we're going to do. Floyd, the truck driver, said, what happened to the drill, baby, drill? We should be drilling our own oil. Well, we are, but this is actually a worldwide market. So when other people need oil, they come to us, and we need to ramp it up, and it affects where they're getting their oil from, and not all of our oil comes from us. So it affects worldwide prices. Very complicated thing to explain. But overall, it seems like you guys are kind of okay with this, but trust but verify. Got 1 minute for Sean in Snohomish. Sean, make it quick, man. What's going on?
Hey, Ari, I signed up for the service literally in 1980 as an 18-year-old. We went into long conversations over adult beverages with 12 servicemen sitting there having this conversation of where do we go, how do we get our hostages back. We went back through ancient history books, literally. Nothing has changed in 47 years. These guys are going to continue to play the long game, as you already noted. There is nothing that has changed. The only way that this is going to come out in a good way for a long-term effect is to remove these people from any position of authority.
I agree with you. Wish we had more time, Sean. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being part of the show. Up next, is Turd Ferguson actually getting recalled? And what about that guy who runs that naked bicycle thing? We'll tell you all about it. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, somebody in Seattle got stabbed with a toothbrush. Well, I guess it's just a day that ends in Y around here. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it is now your chance to win $2,000 cash to help you pay your bills or maybe just your gas bill for the next couple of weeks, because we don't know what's going on with the war right now. They say there's a ceasefire, maybe, maybe not. But thanks to our in-house Pink Floyd cover band to give us the right mood music, you now get your chance to win $2,000 cash. All you have to do is text the word I give you to the number I give you, and then you will be entered to win. Do not text me your name. Do not text me your address. Do not text me your phone number. We have caller ID, my friends. It is no longer the 1980s. We are very high-tech around here. Today's word is purse. As in the last time I went shopping with my wife, she had me hold her purse. As in, at the racetrack and MMA fighting, they have this thing called a purse involving the fights. I don't really understand how it works. That's not something I do. But the word purse, P-U-R-S-E. Text the word purse to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Lots of you have lots of strong feelings about what's going on with regarding Trump's proposed ceasefire. This one here from the anonymous conservative in Seattle prediction, and I hope I'm wrong. This will be just like the last 3 deadlines that he allowed to pass without some kind of we negotiate now type of pause. The strait remains closed, and the regime goes back to enriching uranium. Yes, exactly. This is what I am concerned about as well. He also brings up, did we get the uranium? No. Are we going to get the uranium? Don't know. Basically, all they have to do to stop all of this is stop enriching uranium, stop pursuing a nuclear weapon, and stop funding terrorism, and stop closing the Strait of Hormuz. 3 big demands. Personally, I don't think with this regime you're ever going to get it, because you know what's going to happen? There's no internet in that country right now. They're going to go online and tell everybody they won and they beat the big Satan. That's what they're going to do, and they're going to keep oppressing their own citizens. Is this going to give time for the citizens to rise up against them? Don't know. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take call from Mario, who's chilling out at Miami Beach in free America. Mario, how are you, my man? Oh, Mario can't hear you. Hang on the line 1 second. We'll see what's going on with that technical issue. Hang on 1 second. We'll fix that in 2 seconds. Anyway, a lot of you have a lot of strong feelings about this, and if you want to weigh in on what's going on with Trump in Iran, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Let's try that one more time. Going back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take call from Mario in Miami Beach. Mario, what's up, man?
How you doing, Ari? Hey, listen, I was listening to you, and I was kind of laughing listening to our congressman, which is a disgrace in our district, Adam Smith, crying like a little child or like a little girl, talking about, oh, this guy's crazy, this guy's this, this guy's that. And so I saw an interview with Ro Khanna in Fox News. These clowns were, I asked myself, this is a reflection of us voters, that we vote for these clowns, these worthless clowns who don't represent us, who care more about illegals and criminals than they care about Americans, and they don't even support our military. And like people have said, I was 19 years old, 18 years old in 1979 when this happened, and we've been at this for 47 years. And we need to finish the job fast. Bomb the hell.
Yeah. You know what I remember, Mario? I remember when John McCain was running for president. And they brought in these vets that were in the POW camp with John McCain. And they were talking about how Jane Fonda, hanging out with the Viet Cong, celebrating with the enemy, and what that did to their morale. And now I'm thinking about what people like Adam Smith and all these other guys who say this war is for nothing, you're fighting for no reason, why are you doing another war, what effect that has on the morale of the troops. And they're doing the exact same thing Jane Fonda did. It's like they don't want us to win. It seems like, oh, well, if our stupid plan of bribing the Iranians didn't work, nobody's plan can work. No matter what Trump does, it's wrong for them.
No, they don't care. They do not care. They just hate Trump in every way they could, but they do not care. They want it. They facilitated Iran getting to where they are in their nuclear program. And like I told you, my friend, because we're students of history, this has done many times before, and I know you cited biblical, but I'm going back to the Roman Empire on Trajan's 2 campaigns against Dasha. He let them off the hook for a while, and they reverted to doing back the same thing, and he had to assemble the whole army of volunteers and said, this time there's not going to be any peace agreements, any more money to you. This time we're destroying your leadership structure completely, and we're taking over your country, period. That's exactly what they did back then. I'm not saying that's what we got to do, but there is no way in hell, like you said, that Iran should get a nuclear weapon. These people are fanatical, and they're radical, and they don't care about anybody, and they will blow the whole Middle East up just to get their way or to make sure that the rest of the world doesn't work.
Yeah, I completely agree, Mario. You're 100% right. Because not only do we study history, you've lived it, right? We've seen how this stuff goes before. And how many times have we negotiated with these guys? You cannot negotiate with radical Islamic extremists. They are playing the long game. They are in a death cult. Mario, enjoy the sunshine. Enjoy the weather over there. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. This one here, hey, Ari, my name is John, texting from Swedish Hospital. I hope you're doing okay, John. I have no idea how any Western nation will ever feel safe in negotiations with a militant Islamic nation. The Quran states it is perfectly fine to lie to an infidel, and it encourages knowing such. I would never trust anything that came out of their mouths. All they understand is power. Yes, exactly. Here's something else. I don't know if you guys saw the reports today. You saw that the Iranians were bringing their children around where they thought Trump would be targeting to use them as human shields. And I love that the UN warns America. You know, using human shields is also a war crime, but you're warning America and Israel about what they're doing? You're not warning the Iranians about that? Okay, any of you study history? You know, at the end of World War II, the Nazis didn't just surrender. You had pockets of Nazis holding out for ages. And you remember they were bringing out their little kids? This is no different. The radical Islamists are not going to just surrender. This one here from John in Auburn. Ari, Mario is the best. Amen, brother. If you move to free America, Florida, please keep listening to Ari and calling in. Appreciate the pitch. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Stilgar in Renton. Stilgar, what's up, man?
Hey, I think part of the issue that we keep running into in basically all of the debates and all of the things that we're talking about with progressives and Marxists is that they can't get over their own projection. They think that the way they think is the way everyone thinks, and so they can't comprehend something like a death cult in Iran. They can't understand why to live homeless and addicted to drugs.
Right. They have the Luke Skywalker approach. There's good in them. I can still feel it. There's still good in him. Has that ever been proven right in real life, except with maybe Darth Vader?
Not in my experience, but you want to give people, I want to send certain people to jail, perhaps to the death chamber, for some of the things that they did over the last several years. But I would love a conversion at that point. If they could repent, that would be wonderful. But you can't, just because you've repented doesn't mean you don't bear the consequences of the things that you've done. And so, but I think the real problem is the mentality that says that, these people wouldn't do these things because, I wouldn't do them. Well, just because you wouldn't do them doesn't mean that other people wouldn't.
Yep. Exactly right. And a lot of people just don't understand what you're up against. They don't understand it. I mean, look, if they understood it, they wouldn't be queers for Palestine marching out in the streets with the Hamasniks if they understood it, right? Whose side are they on there?
They just don't seem to be able to live in reality. It's like, oh, wait, we put up a sign that says it's a gun-free zone. Somehow we keep having shootings.
Right. How did the emergency force field not work? Okay, so here we go. Here's an example. You just made me think of this story. My niece and nephew, they were a little too young for me to show them Transformers, the first one. And they got really freaked out by Transformers. So my sister-in-law says, Ari, you got to fix this. You broke this. You fix it. They're terrified to sleep in their rooms. They think robots are going to come through their windows at night. So what did I do? I went to Home Depot and I bought light switches, right? And I didn't hook them up to anything. I just put them in the windows of their bedrooms, right? I installed them, put them together, had them help me with it. And I said, this is a force field switch. And if you push it, Transformers can't get through your windows. You'll be safe from the Decepticons. And it worked. It worked because there's no such thing as Decepticons. Unfortunately, there are crazy people with firearms out there. Stilgar, appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. This story was one of those, well, duh, what'd you expect? From Cairo 7, one of the founders of the Bellingham Naked Bike Ride was arrested in connection with child pornography. Didn't see that one coming. Oh, you mean the pervert had child pornography? Zachary Robertson, age 42, was arrested and subsequently charged last month after police reportedly found explicit images of children on his laptop. According to My Bellingham Now, citing court documents, Robertson's partner called police after she saw him viewing what she believed to be child pornography. Robertson allegedly tried to delete the evidence, but police seized his laptop before he could do so. He reportedly told police he was using the images as a reference for a children's book he wrote that included children running around naked. Hang on, that's your excuse? That's your excuse. Okay, dude, that wasn't really well thought out, I don't think. He said the book is called Norma Normal. It follows a quirky child who navigates suburban living with the standpoint that she is part of her ecosystem and her body knows, oh, God. My Bellingham Now reported police found Robertson's claim that he was using the images as references as odd since the book was published in 2020. A search warrant was then granted and authorities found 25 files of explicit images. Robertson was arraigned on one count of possession of depictions of minors engaged in sexual conduct and one count of internet viewing of minors engaged in sexual conduct, according to the Cascadia Daily News. He was released on bail the day after his arrest and later pleaded not guilty, to all charges and is due back in court next month. Anybody surprised by any of this? Anybody at all? No, of course not. Anywho, time to pivot on over to our governor, Bob Ferguson.
Yeah, it's not my name.
All right, Turd Ferguson.
There is a recall effort underway against our governor. I say this that I would love to see the turd recalled. I would love to see the turd flushed. But unfortunately, I don't think this is going to work. According to Center Square, Olympia attorney Corner Edwards is attempting a long-shot bid to recall Washington Governor Bob Ferguson as a pressure tactic to have the state's top...
Ferguson.
Yeah, him, exactly. A pressure tactic? All right, we could do a lot of analogies here. Let's not do that with the turd. To have the state's top executive make appointments to the 2 vacant seats of the state's Public Disclosure Commission? This is what you got? You're mad he hasn't appointed 2 people to the PDC, so you want him recalled over this, but you're just using it as a pressure tactic to make him fill those seats faster? Okay, I give up. This is the... Oh, God. The commission is the state's election campaign finance watchdog. Edwards said in an April 1 lawsuit in Thurston County that Ferguson is violating his oath of office for failing to fill the 2 vacancies on the 5-member commission. Quote, my primary purpose in bringing this recall petition is to draw attention to the issue, put pressure on the governor's office to fill the vacancies. If he goes ahead and fills those vacancies, odds are that I'm going to withdraw the petition. Wow, you're one of those nerds who really likes campaign finances, right? That's what it is. This isn't even anything juicy. This isn't even anything good. Let me ask a better question here. Here's how a recall works. A judge has to approve it. Let's say a judge approves the recall petition, and then Ferguson fills the seats. But now you have opened a back door to recalling Turd Ferguson, and you can have a recall election. Is this guy right? Is this guy just going to drop it when all of us want to flush the turd? Because I would say, dude, don't drop it. Keep it. Keep it. Oh, crazy state that we live in. Absolutely crazy state. However, there is some good news, by the way. That's real good news. So, according to the Center Square, former Washington State Supreme Court Justice Phil Talmadge, I think that's how you pronounce it, Talmadge? This is before my time, that's for sure. A prominent Democrat has joined a legal team preparing to challenge the newly enacted income tax on households making $1 million or more. The Citizen Action Defense Fund has announced that they have retained this guy. And then, on top of that, they've also we knew this already, State Attorney General Rob McKenna, who was involved in an unsuccessful lawsuit against the state's capital gains income tax. He served as state senator between 1979 and 1995, representing West Seattle. That's the former Supreme Court justice. Before he was elected to the state's high court, he served until 2001, then opened his law firm. He has been repeatedly selected as a super lawyer in Washington state. So now this guy is teaming up with the former State Attorney General Rob McKenna to take this all on. This is looking better and better. I think the Citizen Action Defense Fund actually called it a legal super team. It's like the Super Friends all getting together. You know what I think should be included in their brief? Turd Ferguson himself, saying that voters should be able to weigh in on the income tax.
They'll have their day in court, and that's as it should be. They'll have their day before the people. Totally appropriate. I'm very supportive of the initiative process, and I think the people should weigh in on this. The Supreme Court should weigh in on this. So I've got zero issue on that, and I feel confident going forward.
You're supportive of the initiative process, right? Yeah, he's lying. He's completely lying. If he was so supportive of the initiative process, then why'd he put an emergency clause on this, getting rid of the referendum? Oh, he said initiative, not referendum, so he doesn't like the referendum process. Now, let's just catch everybody up on where this thing is right now. So what happened is you had Brian Haywood and Let's Go Washington filed a referendum. A referendum, you need a lot less signatures to repeal the income tax, and you get to decide what it says. So you bypass Nick Brown, who's going to write whatever crazy language he wants that's totally confusing, which messed up the initiatives last time. So what happens? You had the Secretary of State, Steve Hobbs, say, no go, not doing it. And Brian Haywood said, I'm suing. You guys slap an emergency clause on everything all the time. We interviewed Brian Haywood about this yesterday. You can find the interview over at KVI.com. While you're there, remember to enter for your chance to win Washington Fair tickets while you're over there. But we're talking about this. And if we are successful, if this lawsuit is successful, then you know what happens? It'll be a lot easier to get rid of this thing. If we're not successful, then you've basically called out the Democrats for overusing the emergency clause on everything. How can it be an emergency when this thing doesn't go into effect for a few years? It's clear what they're doing here, and they want to force it to be an initiative because then they get to write the language for it. Remember how confusing they made it last time? You had to vote yes to say no to some of the initiatives. They did that purposely last time. Well, the question is the super team representative of Washington, which I think it is. I think the Democrats overstepped their bounds, and I think a lot of people are pushing back against this. And I think that brief should 100% include that Bob Ferguson thinks the people should weigh in on it. Great, very supportive of the initiative process. Then how come your Democrat friends were trying to get rid of the initiative process last session? You know what the next question you should be asking Bob Ferguson right after that one? The question should be, if that bill comes back, would you sign it? Would you sign a bill that gets rid of the initiative process? Because your Democrat friends in the Washington State Legislature were promoting it last time around. Do you support it? Would you sign it? We know his word isn't worth anything anyway. This is a guy who lies for a living. So I would just like to see him squirm and try and answer that question because we know his word is absolutely worthless. This is good news, though, that you got a lot of people joining this super team, though, and I hope it's representative of Washington. I think it is. Tell me if you think that the Democrats finally crossed the line this time, because I think for sure that they have, and they don't realize the sleeping giant they woke up. And speaking of people waking up, somebody woke up on the streets of Seattle deciding to stab somebody else with a toothbrush. Must be a day that ends in Y. That and more insane crime stories from our area When we come back, you're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I should just call this segment, Katie Wilson Says This Is Your City. Or, This Is Your City, Katie Wilson. Isn't that her hashtag? This is your city? Well, okay. Let's start with what's going on in her city, shall we? A man was assaulted on Harbor Avenue Sunday morning, where police say he was stabbed in the neck by a woman with the back end of a toothbrush. Wow. I love our city. That's the end of the blotter. That's the end of the story. That's it. That's all I got. No information on arrest, nothing else. The guy refused medical treatment. That's that. Stabbed with a shiv while just hanging out at Alki Beach.
Wow, this city is seeing a lot of decay.
Oh, no. Bad. Funny. Funny. I'll take it. Very good, Kevin. Very, very good. Yeah, that's just Katie Wilson. This is your city. What else we got going on around here? We got this. This one is my favorite. Seattle SWAT team has arrested an Ohio fugitive who is wanted for murder, assault, and cocaine trafficking. Yes. We love when cocaine's involved around here. Detectives of the Seattle Police Department's Gun Violence Reduction Unit. Does that spell anything fun? No. You guys couldn't come up with like abbreviation that spells something fun? Nope. They received information on April 2nd at about 12:15 p.m. that a 24-year-old wanted man may be in the Seattle area. The Hamilton County Sheriff's Office in Cincinnati issued a $500,000 arrest warrant for the suspect felon last September. Detectives tracked the suspect to an apartment building on Roosevelt Way Northeast, requested SPD's SWAT team to arrest the high-risk fugitive. At around 12:40 p.m., SWAT set up a security perimeter around the apartment and arrested the man shortly afterward without incident. Okay, so here it is. They actually wrote it. It's GVRU. GVRU. That's their abbreviation for the Gun Violence Reduction Unit. Verified the arrest warrant, and the man was booked into King County Jail. Police said he is expected to be extradited back to Ohio. So, we don't have enough criminals here. We're importing them. Wait. He's an illegal alien. He's not meant to be here because he's from Ohio. Shouldn't we be giving him a sanctuary? Shouldn't we be releasing him on the streets? Now I see what your bar actually is. Our state. It's not just our city. Our state is crazy. So the Tumwater Police Department reported yesterday this morning our school resource officer was called by the administration at Black Hills High School regarding allegations there was a juvenile age student on campus who was alleged to have drugs and a gun in his car and had reportedly sold vapes to students in the parking lot. All right, Kevin, I know there were drug dealers in schools growing up. I mean, I know who was dealing it in my school, even though I did not partake in that particular thing. But it's basically some poser kid. He didn't have a gun or anything on him, right?
Yeah, I didn't know anybody that was really dealing per se, but I knew who you went to,
yes,
to where they could point you in the direction of where to get the stuff.
I knew who would sell you the pot. I knew who that person was.
Yeah.
I was not friends with this person. I've never smoked pot in my life, actually. But
yeah,
this was not a person who would have a gun. It wasn't that kind of thing.
No.
Yeah.
No, it just seemed like someone that would also have some Van Halen concert tickets as well.
Yeah, it was more like the guy from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, right? So the school resource officer responded to investigate. It was determined the student did not have a gun or drugs in his possession in the building. With consent of the owner, the school resource officer then searched the student's car in the parking lot. During the search, he found a firearm, cash, vape products, and narcotics. The student was arrested and booked into Thurston County Youth Services for unlawful possession of a controlled substance with intent to deliver unlawful possession of a firearm. Well, how'd he get it? He's a Ute. How'd he get it? How'd he get the firearm? Additional charges will be referred to the Thurston County Prosecutor's Office at the conclusion of the investigation when it is completed. It had been determined that at no time were students or staff threatened with a weapon. Oh, no, just drugs or whatever else this kid had on him. Nor was it displayed while on campus. That's what they're worried about. I love the focus here. They're worried about the firearm, not the deadly drugs or whatever else this kid was selling. Our state's priorities are so messed up. And in fact, we're going to talk about, unfortunately, some more dead children. Why? Because Washington State will not do anything to fix it. Travis Couture has been fighting to change this law. Joins us when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Last night, I saw 2 cases of dead children. 2 dead children in Washington. And both of these deaths were 100% preventable. What are these traced back to? Once again, the Keeping Families Together Act, which was passed with bipartisan support a few years ago. But Republicans have realized the awful, awful effects that this thing has had, where now you're keeping children in homes with drug addicts, because at the beginning it was nobody really wants DCYF taking away kids if you don't have to, but then it became very, very clear that drug addicts were keeping the children. The kids are now wandering around a house where a parent is passed out, and the kids get into the drug stash. Democrats have said just get a lockbox, as if a drug addict has enough common sense to put anything in a lockbox. And Republicans are now saying we need to fix this and get the kids out of the house. It's been tried to be fixed in the past few legislative cycles, and the Democrats have refused to do anything about it, and the body count continues to grow. Joining us now, the person who has worked the hardest in the Washington State Legislature to repeal this insanity, Representative Travis Couture. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Ari.
I wish it was under better circumstances, because I like bashing the budget with you and I like making fun of Democrats with you, but this is literally life and death we're talking about here. And once again, it looked like there was going to be movement in the legislature where Democrats realized what was going on, and then they all voted against any fix for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tried literally everything in the rule book to try to fix this last session. I even tried some rare procedural motions on the House floor to drag the dead bills out of committee to bring them up for a vote. And the Democrats just complained that, this bypasses our committee process. But, I mean, here we have this huge problem of child fatalities and near fatalities. And sometimes even when the child isn't dying behind closed doors in their homes because they're locked in there with fentanyl-abusing parents, sometimes we're just Narcaning them on King 5 on your nightly news, on the streets. It's totally unacceptable. In the last couple of years, roughly over 100 deaths of kids. And just, to look at it in perspective, before the Keeping Families Together Act, it would be like less than 5 in the entire state of Washington. So we have a huge crisis on our hands where these are totally preventable deaths. And what the Keeping Families Together Act has built is a system that continues to escalate risk. You have CPS caseworkers, social workers visiting these families like not 10 times, not 20 times, but sometimes up to 70 times, building these traumatic experiences for these kids until they die. And sometimes these kids were born addicted to drugs. And I was just crushed and heartbroken, Ari, because when we debated the operating budget, which you just mentioned on the House floor, we had an amendment to basically enact my bill, House Bill 1092, which would fix the problem and add some more money for more social workers to help combat this crisis of dying kids that we have. And it failed by 3 votes. And you could have hit me with a truck. I just don't understand it. Why we can't do the simple task of removing kids from dangerous situations, which we all realize are dangerous. I mean, just think of the fentanyl abusers on the streets of Seattle and ask yourself, should that person who is slumped over in the Fenny Hunch, who has their skin peeling off and everything else, should that person be in the caring and loving care of a child? Absolutely not. They can't even care for themselves, let alone a child. And that's exactly what's happening right now. And all the Democrats have answers for is, they just need more services. Well, guess what? That's exactly what happened in these 2 cases that you're bringing up right now, one in Seattle, one in Longview. They had been involved with the families. They had been giving them services. But you can't just hand them a lockbox for your illegal narcotic fentanyl, and you can't just teach them safe sleep training and hope they don't smoke their fentanyl and roll over on the baby and kill it. And so that's exactly what's happening. More services does not make a home safe. What makes a home safe is not having illegal drugs and hard drugs like fentanyl or meth inside of it. That's what makes it safe. But they just want to keep pouring more services and making the system and the Keeping Families Together Act work even worse for these kids. And every time, what frustrates me the most, Ari, is that if you don't solve it during the legislative session, here we are right now with no ability to fix it, and we have to wait till next frickin' January in order to go save the lives of some kids. It makes me absolutely sick. It makes me want to crawl out of my own skin. A state that cannot protect the 14th Amendment rights of children in its care against abuse and neglect has lost the moral authority to do anything else. And so there is a lot of bad issues, income taxes and budgets and all sorts and housing stuff and whatever that happens in Olympia. But you know what? It often doesn't have an immediate life or death behind it of a child. And so this absolutely needs to be solved next session, period.
So let me ask you this. You talk to the Democrats on the other side of the aisle. And I know, like, sometimes it seems like everybody's at each other's throats, but some of them you get along fine with. What was their excuse for voting against this afterwards? Because we saw a lot of Democrats being pressured into doing things they didn't want to do, caving to their own leadership. Could they even look you in the eye after this, knowing more children were going to die?
Well, they have they think the system is working. I mean, it is just batshit crazy. I'm sorry, but it's crazy to look at the numbers and see the child deaths happening right in front of you, and for them to say, "Oh, but no, it's better. It's working now." It's not working now, and it's a Democrat leadership problem. And as a matter of fact, I had a lot of Democrats lined up said, "Yes, we're with you on this," and that's why the vote was so close. But it's the Democrat leadership in the House. You got people like Roger Goodman, the chair of the Public Safety Committee, won't move the most simplistic fentanyl bills, or child protection bills. You've got, Steve Berquist, the chair of the Human Services and Early Learning Committee, that failed to hear even most fixes to the Keeping Families Together Act. And I will say, Ari, that when I brought these to the floor, I didn't just bring my bill. I brought 2 Republican bills and a Democrat bill to fix the system, and they even voted down their own bill. The prime sponsor, Alicia Rule, up in the 42nd District, I brought her bill to the floor, and she voted no on her own bill to fix the system. So it just feels like, it's like Vegas. The House always wins. And right now, I think there's a lot of fear around making Lillian Ortiz-Self angry, and she was the prime sponsor of the Keeping Families Together Act, and she is the number one cause why we have not fixed this law. And she is a member of Democrat leadership. She is their caucus chair. And I sat down with her, and I just feel like we were talking in 2 different sets of data. But the DCYF will try to manipulate the data as much as they want, but even if we went by the Democrat leadership's numbers, it's still tremendously bad. But instead, what they did is they killed every possible bill in committee instead of bringing it to the floor because they did not want to debate Republicans and some moderate Democrats on this issue. We forced that issue on the operating budget, and it failed by 3 votes. Which is tragic to me. I mean, I literally, Ari, I went home and I felt like crying for like a week. About that.
Yeah, I can understand why. Because this is something that we know is costing kids lives. We know the numbers are going through the roof. It is avoidable. But this seems like the latest failure, as you alluded to earlier, with Department of Children, Youth, and Families. We now have $1.3 billion of funds they couldn't audit. No matter how much they spin their excuses, you cannot excuse that you couldn't audit something in 1 year and then you didn't do anything about the next year, the next year, the next year for 4 consecutive years. It doesn't look like they're auditing anybody in these homes either. It doesn't look like they're auditing daycares. Tana Sen is absent. We don't know where she is. What's the point of even funding this agency anymore?
Yeah, Tana Sen is like the Where's Waldo of Olympia. Where is she at? I mean, you don't need a bill or a new law for the agency secretary and the agency leadership to simply open their own books and look at it. You don't need a new law for that. And myself and Representative Josh Penner had secured some mild daycare audit and daycare reforms to stop these overpayments and to add more accountability into the system so you couldn't defraud this system. We got DCYF to finally agree. We got Democrats to agree. We inserted those amendments into a child care licensing bill, and it passed unanimously out of the House. And then it got over to the Senate, and Senator Claire Wilson wanted to rip out all of the good reforms that we had made, and then she got some lashback from the public over that. And so instead of facing that backlash from the public, she just killed the bill entirely, and we all got nothing as a result of it. So it's incredibly frustrating. And I just think that if you're not willing to be a good fiduciary of taxpayer money, if a big billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar state agency with a lot on its plate to tackle can't do the simple task of auditing the money that it sends to people or even having good controls over that money, that's a huge problem. And you're right. Like, what good does DCYF do right now? Almost everything in their care, juvenile rehabilitation, child welfare, daycares and child care, everything is messed up and broken. I call DCYF the reverse King Midas touch. Everything they touch turns to crap.
That's a great way to put it. Absolutely great way to put it. I wish that we could be making fun of them and lives weren't at risk. But unfortunately, we see how often they are because of their failed operations, and Democrats keep funding them. Representative Travis Couture, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on again, Ari.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder that we are giving away four tickets to the Washington State Fair. All you have to do is head on over to kvi.com. It's going to ask for some personal information. And while you are over there, make sure you get entered for your chance to win, and check out the articles we have over there with news we haven't even done on the show yet. That's right. We've been publishing some stories over there before we get to them on air, so you might see some stuff you haven't seen before. You can also catch our podcast over there and stream us at kvi.com. Well, in news that surprised nobody, Sound Transit's Link Light Rail is undergoing repairs in Tacoma. Yes, in other news, water. Still wet. T-Line train service is suspended until the end of service on Thursday, which means you ain't going to get to ride that thing until Friday. They say that a broken rail needs to be replaced near South 21st Street and Pacific Avenue. Free bus shuttles will replace the T-Line from the Tacoma Dome to St. Joseph's stations. Most of the work will be done after 7 p.m. Isn't that nice overtime for all those workers? I wonder why it's done and it can't be on budget. Maybe because you're doing all it after 7 p.m. If the train line stopped anyway, why can't they work during the regular weekday? And you think these guys are capable of getting a train expansion out to Ballard, getting a train expansion out to West Seattle? Well, now that they're $34.5 billion short. I guess we should be thankful it's not California, where they're $120 billion short for their bullet train project. Sound Transit wants your input on future light rail projects. They have a public survey up on their social media and website to see community input on how to address a projected $34.5 billion funding shortfall over the next 20 years. You know what's funny about this? I went to check out the survey. There is no option for stop now, stop doing this. No option at all. Instead, it's just, well, should we tax people more or should we prioritize this line or that line? Nothing about, hey, everybody's moving out. Instead, the agency says the gap stems from historic inflation, tariffs, labor shortages, and supply chain disruptions. Funny, you didn't say any of that during Joe Biden's time. And you didn't say it's because you guys can't, under any circumstances, run on time or on schedule or on budget or on anything. Never, ever, 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 ever. The survey is open to residents who live within the Sound Transit District. Yeah, I'm sure that nobody's going to monkey with their totally scientific survey they have on what to do with Sound Transit. I'm sure nobody's going to mess with that survey at all. Just a reminder, it's up at their website. It's up on their social media. And if you want to weigh in on this in the comment section, just write, not just no, hell no, stop now. And if you do that, let us know so we can file a public disclosure to get what people actually answered for the survey, because it's open to public disclosure. Up next, my friends, in theory, there's a ceasefire in effect over in the Middle East. So how come missiles are still flying through the air towards Israel? We'll give you the latest updates when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, a big loss for our new progressive Seattle City attorney. But before we get to any of that, got some breaking news for you right now.
Talk Radio 570 KVI. Breaking news on the Ari Hoffman Show.
At the beginning of the last hour, we announced that President Trump had posted over on Truth Social that there was a ceasefire between the U.S., Israel, and Iran going into effect shortly, where there was supposed to be the deadline for Iran to do the right thing, or Trump was going to blow them off the face of the earth. Let's go through what led up to this and what happened in the moments afterwards. So, last night, President Trump basically said he was going to annihilate Iran if they didn't do what he said he wanted them to do. That means reopen the Strait of Hormuz and stop developing nuclear weapons and stop funding terror. It's been very simple. These are basically the same demands we've had of Iran for decades now. Nothing's really changed. Iran could have joined the international community if they had given up terrorism and given up nuclear weapons decades ago, but they refused to do so. So President Trump had enough of them. We've basically achieved a lot of our military objectives, but do we have the uranium? No. Have they agreed to stop with the nuclear development? No. They can still close the Strait of Hormuz anytime they want. Even though we put their Navy at the bottom of the ocean and we took out their entire Air Force, the problem is any guy with a shoulder-mounted rocket launcher can take out an oil tanker, as we saw what happened with our airplanes that got shot down just a couple days ago. So, President Trump announces the ceasefire. Shortly after that, after the ceasefire goes into effect, we get this report from Fox News.
Ceasefire, this has not gotten word to the people firing missiles, Mike?
Well, it seems that way. Just about 5 minutes from the time we got the announcement that we had that Truth Social post, and you read it on the air there, then the phone started lighting up, indicating that more missiles were inbound. From looking at what we get over the rather sophisticated phone alert system that they have here in Israel, looks like these missiles will fall probably somewhere between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, or possibly south toward the area of Ashkelon. And what we have seen mostly in recent days is these cluster bombs that come through. That way, even when the interceptors get them, you get them, they break up into dozens of bomblets, each of them with about 10 pounds of explosives in them, so they can still be quite lethal. And there have been situations where people have been out in the street, they didn't get into the bomb shelters, and those bomblets are enough to kill people. But clearly an act, either the message didn't get through, or what we often see in the Middle East here, when there's an agreement, someone just tries to be defiant one more time before the agreement goes through.
Someone, usually the terrorists. We saw this with Hamas. We saw this with Hezbollah. Right before there's a ceasefire, what always happens? You see the terrorists always unload what they have left. It's kind of like two siblings. The parent turns around when the kids are fighting with each other and says, no more hitting. And the kid tries to get in as many of the little jabs as he can before they're done. That's what this is. That's what you're seeing right here. Now, something that's been left out of the media is the casualties in Israel. Over the last few days, while we were all discussing how amazing it was that the U.S. was able to rescue its pilots, there were these cluster bombs being dropped on Israel, and not all of them can be shot out of the sky because they break apart over a city and then drop these little bomblets. They take out entire buildings. They took out a couple families. Really tragic stuff. So Iran, before formally accepting the ceasefire moments ago, and agreeing to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, they launch a whole bunch of missiles at Israel to get in their last licks, and now they say there's a ceasefire in effect. The problem is, do you believe them? Typically, what Iran does, what Hamas does, what Hezbollah does, what all these terrorist regimes do, during a ceasefire, they use the time to regroup and rearm. Let's be clear about this. Iran has no Air Force left. It has no Navy left. It has almost no commanders left. Their new Ayatollah is likely dead. They're making AI videos to try and prove that the guy is alive. And this is bad AI that even I can do. But this has been Iran's go-to for the last 47 years. Lie, lie, wait it out, lie, wait it out. This is what they do. Now, the question is, are they actually agreeing this time, or are they just agreeing until President Trump's out of office? I do not trust the Iranians. I do not trust the Iranian regime. When President Trump made his threats last night, first of all, here's something you need to think about. When President Trump says, we're going to blow you off the face of the earth and we're going to start with your oil refineries and your power stations and your bridges, who telegraphs that's where they're going to go? So the Iranians go running over there with their children to use them as human shields, hoping that the U.S. won't bomb them. Now, what's fascinating is by doing this, one, using human shields is a war crime. Two, they're admitting that they know that the U.S. and Israel will not bomb those targets if there are children there, but also admitting that they have no compunction whatsoever about using their own children as human shields. You are fighting against a death cult, and a death cult can wait out a U.S. midterm. A death cult can wait out a U.S. presidential election and just wait for the next guy who might give them billions of dollars that they can redistribute as the number one state sponsor of terror. We will see what will happen. Personally, I don't know why we're doing this. Should have had the Navy take care of the Strait of Hormuz. You got your allies to think about. For example, you got your allies in the Middle East. I think Europe's completely worthless at this point, and I think you should keep going. But I want to know what you think. You give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. So will they reopen the Strait of Hormuz actually? Because you can put out all the letters, all the notices, all the social media posts you want, but they haven't really been able to close it. Right now, everybody's just afraid of some lunatic with a shoulder-mounted rocket launcher or a mine being dropped in there or some kind of water IED taking out a giant oil tanker. So right now, the strait isn't technically closed, just everybody's worried about that happening. Who's going to go first? Who's going to go first? Take your ship through the strait to see if there's actually a ceasefire in effect or if they just want to get their last licks in. Me personally, I think we should have kept going. You cannot trust this regime. You cannot. They took their own children out to be human shields. They have been funding terror for the last 47 years. Unless Iran has magically agreed to give up their nuclear ambitions and stop funding terror and no longer actually controls the Strait of Hormuz, I don't see why we're doing this. Now, they say, President Trump said in his statement on True Social that the reason they're doing this is to firm up an actual conditions for the end of a war. If there's no actual end of the war, you know the Iranians were just biding their time so that they could redistribute resources or so they could rearm or whatever else they had or just needed some breathing time, some downtime. Maybe that's what it is, because make no mistake about it, they are defeated militarily. They are defeated militarily. It doesn't mean there aren't threats out there, but most of their missile launchers have been destroyed. Most of their missile capacity has been destroyed. And what the U.S. was doing before today was they were pounding the military installations at Karg Island and other locations, which probably made the Iranians nervous because they said if they're taking out the military installations, that means they plan to invade. And if they're going to invade Karg Island or they're going to bomb Karg Island, what that means is that Iran has no economy left at all. Look, their economy is already in the toilet. But if you take out their oil refineries, if you take out any of their drilling, anything else that they got, they have no chance whatsoever to build up their economy. And guys, it's real simple. You want to be part of the world economy? Stop funding terror. Stop pursuing a nuclear weapon. The demands have not changed. Have not changed from the beginning of all of this. Let me know what you think. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. John in Auburn says, Ari, a Middle East ceasefire is the equivalent to a Democrat's campaign promise. It just doesn't happen. This one here from the 360, totally take out Iran. They will definitely come back. Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling also. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take call from Corey in Bellevue. Corey, what's going on?
Ari, there is no point in negotiating with Iran. It doesn't matter what any particular leader or faction of government says, they're going to renege on it. We should just stop negotiating with them. What we need to do is we need to go in on the ground with our special operations forces. We need to capture their nuclear materials, destroy that, and their production capabilities. That's going to mean being on the ground anywhere from 72 hours to maybe as much as 10 days. at more than one location. What we probably need to do is put some boots on the ground at Karg Island and maybe near Bandar Abbas, where they're launching their anti-ship missiles. We do that to draw in their best ground forces, and then we go in and we strike hard with missiles and bombers to clear out the ground area, drop our troops in. We have to go underground, fight our way in. Inevitably, that's going to mean deaths. Hopefully, we can get our people out. But what we need to do is we need to deny them their nuclear materials and their capacity to make more nuclear materials. And then we need to put very strong sanctions on any other country that will sell them the capability to rebuild that nuclear stockpile.
Yeah, I agree. Did we negotiate a surrender for the Nazis or the Japanese? And don't forget, there were radicals in Nazi Germany who were parading out 10-year-old kids, gave them a gun, and said, here, go fight the Americans, even though Hitler was dead and everybody else was captured. Let's not forget that with the Japanese, when the emperor wanted to surrender, people tried to stop his surrender message from going out. These are hardcore radicals, and now you're dealing with something worse than either one of them, which is the Islamic death cult. And do you think they're actually just going to give up and just going to negotiate? That's not how they roll. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of who you're at war with, don't you think, Corey?
Absolutely. There's a similarity to Cambodia in 1975. After we had withdrawn from Vietnam, the Cambodians captured one of our cargo ships and held the crew hostage. We didn't negotiate with the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. It was too chaotic. We sent our Marines and our naval forces in, and we got those people out, and we killed the people on that island that had taken them prisoner. There was no point in trying to negotiate with them. There was no stability to the government. Anyone who made a promise wasn't going to carry it through. We need to do the exact same as the Maguez incident, is what it was in 1975. We need to treat this the same way. We need to get out those nuclear materials, and we need to be very strong on sanctions against any nation that sells them centrifuges or any other things to refine uranium or plutonium.
Yeah, and the question is, are the Iranian people actually going to rise up? Have we taken out enough of the IRGC to actually make that happen? Corey, appreciate your input, appreciate your perspective, appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. This one from the 360. Ari, I agree with you. I think the Navy should have just went into the Strait. I don't know why we didn't do that from day one, why we didn't send in the Navy right away. If there was any miscalculation in this war, that's the only one. Can they not maneuver in the Strait? Is that what it is? They can't take evasive action in case there is a threat? Is that why we're worried about sending our ships in? If you have any perspective on that, feel free to give us a call at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Now, I want to read for you something from 2018. This was a tweet that President Trump put out in 2018. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un just stated that the nuclear button is on his desk at all times. Will someone from his depleted and food-starved regime please inform him that I, too, have a nuclear button, is much bigger and more powerful than the one he has, and my button works. Do you remember how the left went crazy? He's a madman. We're all gonna die. Nuclear war. Ah! Right? Did that happen? No. This is what Trump does. Make a deal or else. I mean, remember that Zito Salena said in 2016 to take Trump seriously, but not literally? That's exactly what this is. This is another example of it. Look, if you get a new regime, if you get an Iran that's actually willing to deal, if you get an Iran that's actually willing to disarm out of this ceasefire, great. I'm very, very skeptical based on past history. These are the guys who told Hezbollah to start fighting with Israel again, even though most people in Hezbollah have no balls left, or legs, or fingers, or anything because of Operation Grim Beeper. So why do you think that Hezbollah was dumb enough to start up with Israel again when Israel and the U.S. are completely obliterating Iran? It's part of the death cult, and Iran pays their bills. This is who you're dealing with. And I think a lot of the world doesn't understand that. Do I think President Trump doesn't understand that? No. Which is why I have a little bit of confidence, and I'm wondering what he's doing in the back. I think President Trump does understand what he's up against. He's said it plenty of times before. He has called out Iran for their BS. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. We don't know. Some of you say trust but verify. I'm very, very skeptical right now. I want to see what the deal actually is. I want to see what Iran is actually agreeing to. And I want to see the enforcement mechanism before I fully support something like this, because you had them on their knees. I know there's political considerations. I know there's economic considerations. I get all that. I do. But I wouldn't want to go through all this just to fumble the ball at the 1 yard line. I don't want to pull a Seahawks with Marshawn Lynch. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Richard in Central Willie. Richard, what's going on?
Oh, I just was thinking about this whole thing, and I would think that Trump could send out a message, underground or however, not make it public, but send, hey, we're going to hire mercenaries, pay them big dollars, supply them with all the weapons, everything they need. They go in there and do whatever they need to do, and then take the oil and pay all those mercenaries, pay for all the expenses, and let them handle it.
Well, I don't think we need the mercenaries to do it. I mean, look, Israel can do it if the U.S. doesn't want to put boots on the ground. Israel can go take care of this, or the U.S. can take care of it, and then the U.S. can have the oil. Or you know what? Say to
have the oil, and then it's
right. Say to Saudi Arabia,
there's no innocent blood.
Say to Saudi Arabia, hey, if you guys want to go in there and get the oil, we'll work it out for you. We'll bomb the you-know-what out of them, even though Saudi Arabia has their own planes that they bought from us. So just go ahead and do that. Richard, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Oh, we have an update from the text line. This is from the 206. Hi, guys. I just saw on Channel 13 anti-war protesting with pre-printed signs in downtown Seattle. Yes, we knew this thing was coming. We knew that Representative Daria Fariver, the Iranian American, who somehow supports the Ayatollah's regime, but she's living here, not there. She's anti-American. She's anti-Israel. She's an absolute lunatic. Guess who's leading this protest? Guess who's doing it? Oh, the 12th man for life didn't like my Marshawn Lynch reference. They said too soon. Too soon? We just won the Super Bowl, guys. I don't think it's too soon. Still love you, though, dude. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Paul in Puyallup. Paul, what's up?
Hey, Maury. I just wanted to make a comment about negotiations with the Middle Eastern cultures of mainly the Islamic cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had a friend or I had a visitor come to our church several years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago. He said that they were having their problems back then. He said that when we say negotiate, come to the table and negotiate, to them in their mind, they perceive that as weakness. So they come with demands, just like the Democrats. They don't come with negotiate. It's like they don't understand what the word is or something.
No. You're right. They do see it as a sign of weakness. This was the same thing during Israel's war with Hamas. They see any negotiations as a sign of weakness. What they didn't expect in that war, what they didn't expect was Israel go, no, give us back the hostages. We're not negotiating with you. And that's when finally you got the ceasefire we have now.
Exactly. And President Reagan says, I'm not going to negotiate with terrorists. And he said he won't be the first people that died for America. And he sent the troops in after when the president before him, who's that?
Carter. Yeah.
He didn't want to do it. Carter, correct. So yeah, I hear you guys talking about these negotiations. It's like they don't understand. What they do understand is brute force.
Yep.
They understand that, and they will respect that, but they do not respect negotiations.
Yep, I agree 1,000%. 1,000%, I agree, Paul.
So I don't want to hold you. I have other comments I want to make, maybe offline, or on a different subject. But it's something you would be interested in hearing.
No problem. You can text them over to me, buddy. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Yeah, I mean, right now, I know President Trump understands the Iranians. I know he does. We played the clip of him yesterday calling BS on everything that they said. So, I mean, look, here's what he said. You tell me if he understands.
47 years they've been negotiating with these people. They're great negotiators, and because they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. And if somebody that takes my place someday is weak and ineffective, which possibly that will happen because we had numerous presidents that were weak, ineffective, and afraid of Iran, we're never going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon. And if you think it's okay for people that are sick of mind, that are tough, smart, and sick, really sick, from a policy standpoint, from a any which way you want to say. Mentally, these are disturbed people. If you think I'm going to allow them, and powerful and rich, to have a nuclear weapon, you can tell your friends at the New York Times, not going to happen.
Exactly. This is what else he said yesterday.
That's one thing that's a little different than other things. We can bomb the hell out of them. We can knock them out for a loop. But to close the strait, all you need is one terrorist that somehow has a truck loaded with, because you can carry them in trucks, large trucks, a water mine, drop them in the water, and now you tell people that own ships that cost $1 billion to don't worry about the mine. You can do that even just by saying we put mines in the water. So it's not like the rest. We can knock out their military. We already have. We've knocked out their Navy. We've knocked out their Air Force completely. We've knocked out 158 ships in 3 days. We've knocked out even their mine droppers. They don't have any mine droppers anymore, but they put them on other boats, and they could drop them. I'm not even sure they have any mines there, by the way. I'm not sure. I'm personally, they say there might be 8. I don't know. I think there might be none, because they're very good bullshit artists. That's why for 47 years they've been bullshitting other presidents, and they haven't done the job. And people are living in hell. You live in that country, they're living in hell.
That's why I'm skeptical. President Trump knows what he's talking about. He knows it, and nobody bullies President Trump, and nobody pulls the wool over the eyes of President Trump. But what could we be negotiating with these people? What could we be negotiating with Iran? That's where I have cause for concern. Hopefully we'll find out the full details soon, and we'll give you all the details when we have them. But up next, my friends, the details for you about how the new Seattle city attorney, the new woke one, took her first big loss. Tell you what it means for you and your wallet when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So everybody's wondering what the details of this ceasefire are. And I just got word American journalist Shelley Kittleson has been officially released from captivity and turned over to the Iraqi government after being kidnapped last week in Baghdad by the Iranian-backed Iraqi paramilitary group Kataib Hezbollah. Now, this is interesting because they are funded by, guess who? Iran. So if this is the kind of stuff that's going on behind the scenes, I have a little bit more faith in what's happening. I have faith in President Trump. I have no faith whatsoever with who he's negotiating with on the other side of the aisle. Meanwhile, in downtown Seattle, a whole bunch of the anti-everything, just the anti-everything, the free Nelson Mandela folks, they're all protesting outside City Hall, outside of the federal building. So if you're heading home this time of day, just avoid them. I'm sure it's going to be the usual group of people with the keffiyehs and the anti-ICE. And as one of our texters pointed out earlier, isn't it amazing how they have those pre-printed signs all ready to go? Turns out that the refusefascism.org was calling for protests in Washington, D.C., New York, Boston, Chicago, UC Berkeley, UCLA, and Seattle. Hey, how come you're not calling for them in any red states? How come you're not asking for them in any of them red states or red cities? I wonder why that is. So watch, are they all going to say, yeah, we won? We won. Is that what they're going to do? There's another flyer that says that Iranian-American, anti-Israel, local pro-Hamas representative and pro-Ayatollah Representative Daria Faravar is going to be speaking at one of these things at Seattle City Hall tonight. We'll see what actually happens with that. You think Seattle would have learned their lesson with the activists, but no, they haven't. On Friday last week, we found out that King County Superior Court Judge Sean P. O'Donnell denied all post-trial motions filed by the city of Seattle in the case of the estate of Antonio Mays Jr. versus the city of Seattle. Antonio Mays Jr. was one of the teens who was killed in the autonomous zone. He was one of the ones in the Jeep that was shot up by a whole bunch of Chaz security guards towards the end of the entire occupation of that area. Remember what happened. You're looking at one of the last nights of June in 2020. And a few nights before that, you had seen the warlord of the autonomous zone, Raz Simone, giving out AR-15s to whoever would stand opposed. Well, what do you know? A few nights later, these kids are blown away by a bunch of the Chaz security guards with AR-15s. Shock, shock. Didn't see that one coming. So what happened was the family of Antonio Mays Jr. sued the city of Seattle, won $30.5 million because the jury found that Seattle was reckless. I mean, come on. How could you find them reckless after they're the ones who told the Seattle Police Department to abandon the East Precinct? They're the ones who ordered police to stay out of the area. They spent over $1 million dropping concrete barriers because the warlord and his lunatic BLM and Antifa types wanted to secure the area, and they did whatever they said. And let's not forget the mayor and the fire chief and the police chief and everybody else in the city deleted their text messages so you wouldn't know they were coordinating with the warlord of the autonomous zone. Well, Seattle knew that once this case was won against them, that then all the other victims would come forward and sue the city of Seattle as well. Never mind the business owners, never mind anybody who was assaulted, and it'd be case after case after case, which they would have to pay. So the new Seattle City Attorney, Erica Evans, said, no, this is too much, and the judge rejected the claims. Good. That is the correct ruling. We'll see if Seattle does anything next. We'll see what comes next after that. But what comes next for us here, Jonathan Cho invited me down to see the Discovery Institute and also talk about how he got arrested in Las Vegas. Up next, my interview I did with him over at the Smith Tower earlier today. We'll give you all the details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
I am here at the top of the Smith Tower with my friend Jonathan Cho because the Discovery Institute has just set up their brand new offices, had a grand reopening, or I should say reopening because you moved here, but the Discovery Institute has been doing amazing work for years. And unfortunately, I missed the opening ceremonies, but I want to get the tour myself. Jonathan, I think you are right now not just on top of Seattle, but on top of the world. You posted this picture the other day, Emmy nomination for not being a journalist, which I thought was the funniest thing in the world. Discovery Institute, you're killing it with that. You're killing it with Turning Point USA. And the Las Vegas Police Department has you on their most wanted list. How do you feel about all that?
It's been a busy week is all I can say right now. But glad to have you here. I'm sorry you missed the tour, but I gave you a personal tour. Yeah. And I hope you like the view.
So let's start about the Discovery Institute. You guys moved in. I see a lot of offices down there. You guys do a lot of advocacy. You guys do a lot of think tank stuff. Give me a brief overview of what you guys do.
Yeah, Discovery Institute is multifaceted. I joined now almost 4 years ago. I was in traditional mainstream corporate media for 20 plus years, most recently at Como News, the ABC affiliate. Then, I move over here to go independent, and I have no regrets. The rest is history, as they say, as we've continued our tenacious coverage of the homeless drug crisis in the city, which continues to get worse due to failed public policies. And my job as a senior fellow and reporter is to continue to hold our public officials accountable. And Discovery Institute backs my work. And I'm part of the Fix Homelessness initiative under the Center on Wealth and Poverty. But Discovery Institute, getting back to your initial question, is more than just my program. We're really known for our Center on Science, and that has to do with a lot of the research and data collection and publishing work for essentially intelligent design. And that's been controversial, as you can imagine, in a city like Seattle.
You mean religion's controversial in the blue city?
God exists.
What are you talking about? The thing I never understood with that is that I have my opinions, you have your opinions, we're of different faiths, we're of different religions. One doesn't necessarily mean you can't have respect for the other person. And the same thing with intelligent design, for that matter. So somebody's an atheist. I don't care. That's their personal prerogative. Half the people in my studio are atheists. That shouldn't change how we respect each other, how we feel about each other, and yet people go nuts about this.
Yeah, and I think the reason why I've stayed with Discovery is, of course, the opportunity to continue my work in the city, but it's also to be challenged constantly every day with different perspectives. In fact, Discovery welcomes different perspectives and worldviews because, like you said, we respect differences of opinion. We want to analyze, break it down. And for me personally, as a journalist who wants to get both sides of the story, what Discovery's afforded me to do now is really find now the counter narrative that's been missing for so long when it comes to this homeless drug crisis on the streets. I worked in legacy media for, again, 20 plus years. Whenever we covered homelessness, it was usually just on Thanksgiving, where the reporter would go and talk about all the volunteers serving turkey to all the homeless people. Let's feel good about that. But that was a disservice to what was actually happening on the streets and when it comes to homelessness policy, because the few times I did cover homelessness, we'd go to the advocacy groups or the homeless nonprofits, and they would always say the root causes of homelessness is due to the lack of affordable housing. We just need to build our way out of this problem. Obviously, that's not true in the narrative of the actual root causes to this street crisis: mental illness, drug addiction, broken relationships. That's what I've been able to now go more in depth with here at Discovery Institute. And I think the public is finally starting to realize that there is a counter narrative and there is actually truth to what's happening on the streets.
So Smith Tower is in the middle of Pioneer Square. For those of you who haven't been to Seattle before, and Pioneer Square hasn't really been a nice neighborhood ever. It's getting worse, I would say, because as I was driving right up to your building, it's a beautiful building. It's a gorgeous place. You look up here, you forget about everything that's down below. I came in, I saw 10 addicts on the street, all sitting with each other, all lined up. You pass by this every time you come down here. What's it like, the frustration level? You know how to fix this. You've covered how to fix this. It's a drug problem. It's not a homeless problem. It's a mental health problem. It's not a homeless problem. And then you hear King County Executive Gurmeet Zahalai, you hear Katie Wilson, the Seattle Socialist mayor, say it's a housing problem.
Right, and what's really been underreported, this goes back to the responsibility of local media outlets and journalists here in Seattle, is the fact that all the social service agencies, for the most part, have been dumped and now concentrated in Pioneer Square, the surrounding area, 3rd and Cherry, 3rd and James, primarily the Downtown Emergency Service Center, also known as DESC. They own a stretch of buildings, permanent supportive housing, that is now home to drug addicts, the mentally ill, the chronically homeless. So not only do you have this permanent supportive housing, which does not require any treatment or recovery services or any requirement of its residents to find jobs, you also have shelters now being put up, and even more around the city. And I think that's actually one of the biggest underreported stories. Why are they all being put here? Well, depending who you ask, some of the elected officials, especially the ones in the past, like former King County Executive Dow Constantine, he always said, hey, we've got to put these places near public transportation, near workplaces, so these men and women can easily get around and get to their workplaces. Well, the problem is they're not working.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is they're hanging out on the streets. All of that spills out into the neighborhoods. And now Seattle, if you look around, is still beautiful, but the streets are like a ghost town. We have some of the best views, and this should be a bustling downtown, but it's not.
It's not. You have a 33% office vacancy rate down here, and I think that's lowballing it. We know what the vacancy rate is in the other parts of Seattle. We know that people are selling their homes because of the millionaire tax, and you look around down here and the city's rotting from the inside. And nobody seems to really want to acknowledge it. We're talking with Jonathan Cho from the Discovery Institute. He's their senior fellow. This is the grand opening week of their new facility here in Pioneer Square. So, Jonathan, a lot of the stuff you do, riot coverage, doesn't really have much to do with the homeless. In fact, you got yourself in a little trouble the other day because of a over-aggressive police officer. Do you have a different perspective now on policing after that?
Yeah, to give your listeners some more context, not only do I work at Discovery, I'm also an investigative reporter for Frontlines Turning Point USA, and I was covering No Kings, another protest that erupted across the country. It was last weekend, and I was ironically getting video of somebody being arrested. And I was on the sidewalk. I was trying to avoid the massive crowd. It was totally chaotic. Couldn't hear anything. And I stepped onto the main roadway, which, by the way, was closed off to any traffic for a few seconds, and then I jumped back onto the sidewalk. Next thing you know, I'm being arrested by the cops, accused of jaywalking. So to answer your question, yeah, I'm still pro-police. I'm still pro-law enforcement. I'm definitely not in the camp where we say we have to abolish the police department, but I do have a new lens now, a new set of eyes that, you know, it's not one size fits all. There are at times instances of abuse, over-policing, and I believe in this case, and that's what I'm going to be arguing in court, that this one officer was on a power trip.
And as I say all the time, look, every profession has its bad apples, but you say this to a teachers union, and they'll never admit that, right? You say it to a police department, and when you're talking to the guys, they go, yeah, we really don't like that guy or whatever the case may be. But why is it the teachers will never admit that? Why is it government never admits that? They don't want to talk about that at all. I mean, look, we've had issues in the Washington State legislature where people show up drunk and I think have other problems to public hearings, and they don't want to address that. It seems to me like it's a real double standard. Here you are, pro-police guy, calling out what happened to you, and yet they won't call it out with the problems in their own camps.
Yeah, and I think that lack of humility is evident now. The public sees that, and these politicians, they just refuse to say they were wrong.
Yeah, no politicians like to do that.
Nobody does that, but you'd be surprised. I think the public, the voters, the constituents recognize when someone is humble enough to say they were wrong and they're willing to pivot to the correct solutions, to the right policies. That goes a long way. But in a state like Washington, where you have one-party rule, you actually don't have that obligation. And that is our problem, right? This lack of accountability, and at least when it comes to the media, our responsibility is to continue to call that out, and that's what we do.
In the last 2 minutes, we have with Jonathan Cho, Senior Fellow for the Discovery Institute and a journalist for Frontlines Turning Point USA. So tell us about the Emmy you got nominated for, because I just started laughing when I saw what you were nominated for, because basically it's a story about how you, me, Brandy Cruz, were declared non-journalists, and you were nominated for an Emmy for a story about us not being journalists. Discuss.
Isn't that ironic? Yeah, you know, last year, you know, we were covering the House, and even most recently, where we were denied press credentials because our state legislature now doesn't believe that, we qualify for various reasons. They say I'm associated with Discovery Institute, a think tank, so I can't be a journalist, but clearly our industry peers across the country that actually nominate for these awards believe that my work is journalism. So the story was about, again, the press credentials being denied, and you can't make this stuff up, that we're still in this fight, but now I get nominated for this Emmy Award for covering this situation.
I'll tell you what I think the funniest moments of that would be. Please God, you win. You're on stage.
I feel like we've already won by just being nominated.
Just by being nominated, right? It's an honor just to be nominated.
Yeah.
I think that you win. You're on stage accepting an award for a story about you not being a journalist, getting the Emmy. And me and Brandy Cruz are in the audience applauding you for a story about none of us being journalists among industry colleagues.
And we take a selfie, of course, and post it and tag the Washington.
I think that would just be the best thing ever, that you get an Emmy for the story about them denying our press passes. Jonathan Cho, congratulations on all your success. Congratulations on the new space. And thank you for all the hard work you do on behalf of all of us, not just here in Washington now, but across the U.S. exposing the radical left.
Yeah, and I want to just emphasize one more time that while other people may be leaving the city of Seattle, we still believe it's worth saving. So we're staying in the heart of the city. So I think that's very poignant.
Jonathan Cho, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And everybody's obsessed with the space program right now, especially with Artemis 2 heading around the dark side of the moon. They got a call from President Trump yesterday who was praising their efforts.
Integrity, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Artemis 2 crew, we have a very special guest who wanted to be the first person to greet you after your return from the far side of the moon. It's my honor to introduce the President of the United States of America, President Donald J. Trump. Over to you, sir.
Very special hello to Artemis 2. Today you've made history and made all America really proud, incredibly proud. There's nothing like what you're doing, circling around the moon for the first time in more than a half a century and breaking the all-time record for the farthest distance from planet Earth. It's really special. I want to personally salute and congratulate Commander Reed Weissman, Pilot Victor Glover, Mission Specialist Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen. And I also want to thank the entire amazing team at NASA, headed by Jared, who's a very special guy, by the way.
President, this call is certainly special to all of us, and we really have a lot of faith in our administrator, Jared Isaacman, who is with you. We appreciate his leadership in NASA and in the international community. We are doing great things.
I think one of the biggest highlights was coming back from the far side of the moon and having the first glimpses of planet Earth again after being out of communication for about 45 minutes. It really just reminds you what a special place we have.
When we can, I look forward to seeing you in the Oval Office, and I'll ask for your autograph, because I don't really ask for autographs much, but you deserve that. You really are something. Everybody's talking about this, and we will celebrate your incredible achievements and triumphs. This is big. This is really big stuff. The whole world is talking about it. I'm going to be giving you a big salute on behalf of the American people and beyond that.
Thank you for your leadership. Thank you to Jared for his leadership. Really, thank you for taking the time out today to visit NASA. It's really special for us, but it's really special for the team on the ground. A whole team of people all around the world pulled this off, and we just want to say thank you to all of you for this. It is the thrill and honor of a lifetime to have been on this journey. Today was amazing, and we're so grateful to you all. Thank you very much.
America's awesome. America's awesome. And while our enemies are just trying to figure out new ways to kill people, we're sending people to the moon, and hopefully we're sending people to the Mars soon. This whole thing is inspiring. That was a great montage that the White House put together of the mission so far, and hopefully they come back safe on Friday. Really very much looking forward to it. That's going to do it for us today, my friends, but fear not. We will be back with more insane stories later this week. I'm going to take a couple days off for the last couple days of Passover, but you still will have opportunities to win fantabulous prizes. And don't forget, we'll be out at the fair on Friday. You can meet us in person. You've been listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.